This is Justin Baldoni's last chance to make Miss Allergic to Accountability go away. Hello, my friend. It is Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your number one source for everything It Ends With Us saga. As I previously shared with you all, Baldoni has filed both a motion for summary judgment and a motion for judgment on the pleadings against the authorship thief. What that means, very briefly, is judgment on the pleadings. Your Honor, Malice Alice's complaint is deficient. What she is arguing is not legally sound. Here are all the reasons why. We win here, and it doesn't need to move further. The motion for judgment on the pleadings is, Your Honor, there is nothing here that needs to be shown to a jury because there are no undisputed facts. This is what we allege happened, and this is what the evidence has shown. Motion for summary judgment happens after discovery is closed. As I also shared with you, the judge, her bestie, in addition to these written pleadings and oppositions, he wants oral arguments in court. So we're going to hear from both sides next month in New York. There are a lot of novel arguments being made in this mess. And I think the judge just wants to, what's the expression? Dot his I's and cross his T's. The judge wants to do everything by the book, even though many of us think he's biased, and he wants to give ample runway to each side. But I'm pretty sure this dude is going to base everything off of the written arguments. So that's why today's filings are important. Team Wayfarer dropped a reply memorandum in further support of the Wayfarer party's motion for summary judgment and another one for their motion for judgment on the pleadings. I have not read this yet. We're going to get to it in real time, but maybe there's some interesting takeaways and new kernels that we have not heard yet. Some juicy nuggets. Up first, their motion for summary judgment, P.S., and starting off strong, quote, Lively spills a lot of ink attempting to conjure up factual disputes, but the material facts are undisputed. Her opposition and 56.1 wait, let me see who wrote this. I knew it. Alexandra Shapiro. She was the one who authored the motion for summary judgment. It would make sense that she also took the lead here. She is that lawyer that specializes in appeals and just, I don't want to say higher end, because I think Brian Friedman is a good lawyer. He's my lawyer. But she's a sharp one, Alex Shapiro. Let's get back to it. Her opposition and 56.1 response confirm she has launched a massive legal campaign to address minor grievances, all of which were resolved during production of the film without the need for any litigation at all. I know that litigious Lively is seething, foaming at the mouth right now, reading this characterization of her hurt feelings. Didn't that one say you can't sue for hurt feelings? She did. Alex continues. She recites a litany of supposed harassment ranging from yelling to defensiveness to a conversation Lively herself initiated about redacted to an incident she assured at the time was a non-event, but cannot say any continued after she asked for them to stop. They did stop. And then the parties worked together to produce a successful film, bringing her not only riches, but an extraordinary set of professional accomplishments she touted to the Producers Guild of America as a rare achievement for a woman. Burn. The PGA of it all still upsets me. Not satisfied, she now claims discrimination, arguing, among other things, that her bespoke, heavily negotiated contract was violated, even though she never signed it, and that despite her near total control over the production, she was merely an employee. She also claims defendants unfairly resorted to professional PR firms for guidance, even while she and her husband badmouthed Baldoni and ginned up a flurry of negative press against him. She alleges a massive smear campaign, but fails to point to a single falsehood any defendant uttered against her. Lively's claims do not meet the requisite standards. Summary judgment should be granted. Why? 1. Lively cannot prove any actionable SH. Nothing in Lively's opposition to his motion for summary judgment overcomes the clear reality that she alleges low-level behavior, trivial grievances, and petty slights, redacted yelling, and the other assorted conduct she alleges may be bothersome, but they do not rise to the level of a discriminatory, hostile work environment. Lively apparently recognizes Baldoni's conduct doesn't get her there. It boils down to a comment about redacted after she raised the topic, I'm guessing the ding-a-ling head, and before she agreed to work on the movie. Why redact this? We know what they're talking about now. Why redact? Discussions about shesh and sheshiness while collaborating about how to depict an intimate relationship and intimate scenes, and a remark about her weight made offset to a person uninvolved in the film. She thus now attempts to make Heath the poster boy of SH. Based on what? A brief glance in an already awkward situation, after which Lively undisputedly told Heath, "I'm not saying you were trying to cop a look." Heath, showing her a video related to his child's birth shared in the context of producing a film with a prominent childbirth scene. When it is undisputed, Heath showed the same or similar image to Baldoni and to Redacted, who found it wholly inoffensive. It is remarkable. Alex Shapiro is so good. It is remarkable that after months of discovery, Lively cannot muster anything more to justify the tremendous legal and judicial resources devoted to this case. That's an understatement. It is even more remarkable because whatever concerns she may have had were fully resolved once she raised them. Even Lively does not meaningfully dispute that the entire second phase of filming, including all intimate scenes involving Lively, occurred without incident. Meaning, none of this should have happened. This saga should have never gotten litigious. But their ego, both of their egos took too much of a hit. And that's why we're here. And I'm so happy about that. Thank you. Additionally, says Shapiro, Lively cannot establish the conduct at issue was aimed at her or anyone else because of gender. a basic prerequisite for a sexual discrimination claim. She concedes the alleged conduct affected women and some men. She abandons various allegations, such as improper hugging, because she cannot dispute that both men and women were hugged. Lively's own evidence further undermines her claims. It confirms Baldoni's stated motivation in privately inquiring about her weight was not to demean her as a woman, but to anticipate his own physical obligations. Redacted. Lively's trainer's opinion, redacted. Saladino is neither admissible nor competent evidence on summary judgment. Nor does Lively dispute that she herself repeatedly raised concerns about, redacted, her weight. Yeah. Lively continues to complain that Baldoni once complimented her personal outfit and later the same day referred to her wardrobe as sexy. Scandalous. Lively strains to suggest her costume was revealing, but cannot dispute video footage showing it was in fact an oversized fleece onesie. Nor can she show this was a gendered attack. Lively notes Baldoni similarly referred to a male actor as redacted, while Lively herself joked about redacted. Another male actor to market the film proclaimed that redacted, Brandon Sklenar, is that you? And insisted upon the redacted of her character's wardrobe on more than one occasion. Sexygate continues. Sexiness was indisputably used at times to describe a film devoted to adult themes, not invoked to pit one gender against another. Lively also complains that Baldoni improvised physical intimacy. Lively adduces no evidence to suggest he did this to offend her based on her gender. Baldoni was not targeting Lively as a woman. He was in character filming a scene in which, as Lively puts it, his character and Lively's were redacted. Why did they redact that? Oh, God. Redacted. Such conduct would not be acceptable in a typical office setting, but in the context of two professional actors making a romantic, sexually charged movie, it cannot constitute discrimination. Lively's own declaration describes other kissing scenes in the film as vital to conveying the redacted. Her complaint that Baldoni added intimate scenes fails for the same reasons. Lively does not dispute that she too, revised the script to increase the redacted intimacy, touching, kissing, something like that. Any gendered animus is further undermined by undisputed facts that Lively was invited to discuss her views about the intimate scenes with a female intimacy coordinator before filming and proposed revisions. Lively's effort to evade this conclusion by characterizing the film's birth scene as unscripted nudity without any clothes is absurd. She claims she was unexpectedly required to imply nudity, redacted, under a hospital gown and prosthetic belly. But Lively, a mother of 4, must have known people generally don't wear pants to give birth. Okay, this is one of the best things I've read in weeks. People generally don't wear pants to get... It's so obvious and so brilliant. Nor were comments Baldoni supposedly made to Lively about his personal experiences gendered. It is undisputed any such comments were substantially similar to statements Baldoni has made in talks and books aimed primarily at male audiences. Lively also notably does not dispute that she shared her own views about intimacy with Baldoni during Redacted about the film. Pause. So, if you're not picking up yet, everything is undisputed. Or if not, then everything doesn't matter. It's either undisputed or what she's arguing, it doesn't register. It's not meeting the bar of SH. Nor do the two alleged incidents involving Heath provide any evidence of gender discriminatory animus. Lively cannot dispute that 3 witnesses testified Baldoni asked Heath to show Lively the birth video for non-gender-based reasons following discussions about the birth scene in the film. Indeed, she admits Baldoni contemporaneously told her, redacted. After Lively objected, no one persisted in showing her the video. It is undisputed that Heath also showed the video to Baldoni, a male participant in the film. Similarly, Lively admits Heath entered her trailer once not for any gender-related purpose, but to discuss, redacted, with her permission. Lively asked Heath to turn away from her, and he indisputably did. She claims that at some point, he glanced at her anyway, but doesn't dispute later assuring him, quote, I'm not saying you were trying to cop a look. She cites no evidence supporting her claim that she raised the incident with Heath, nor is there any evidence she raised it during the call with the Sony executive a few days later when she redacted about the production. And while harassing conduct need not be motivated by sexual desire, Lively omits that the very sentence she cites for that proposition underscores that the conduct must be motivated by gender. She cannot make that showing here. Lively defends her reliance on limited, sporadic, one-off instances of alleged misconduct by citing one case in which a single incident sufficed. In reaching that conclusion, the court was clear that isolated incidents must be extremely serious to give rise to an actionable claim. Unlike here, the incident in Bailey involved an unambiguous racial epithet, the N-word, a slur so universally recognized that its discriminatory intent cannot be denied. Beyond Heath's conduct, Lively does not even claim anything she personally experienced was sufficiently severe or pervasive to prove harassment. She largely ignores significant authority confirming her allegations are too mild. She dodges the undisputed critical fact that any alleged harassment ceased once she raised concerns. No issue arose and no incident recurred throughout the remainder of filming. And that was not just defendant's view. It is undisputed that redacted, according to Alex Sachs. Sachs testifying the set was redacted. How could the conduct be severe or pervasive if it vanished once the issue was raised? So much so that Lively, advised by counsel, concluded no formal HR process was warranted. Great point. Her response is so deficient Alex says, quote, even the authorities Lively claims support a relaxed standard require proof of severe or pervasive conduct for a hostile work environment claim. And she can't pass the test. Everybody that worked on It Ends With Us would testify that the set was not severe and pervasive with regards to SH or harassment of any kind or discrimination. That's why it's still just all so crazy that it's gotten to this. Lively tries to bolster her claim by invoking the alleged experience of other women. There is no evidence Lively knew about most of these alleged events. Wait, I love it. I don't think we've heard this claim before. There is no evidence Lively knew about most of these alleged events prior to litigation, if they even occurred. Several of these alleged events are supported only by rank hearsay or otherwise inadmissible evidence. Such unsupported claims must not be considered. Moreover, the conduct she discusses adds little weight to her claims. Like Lively, co-star Jenny Slate refers to a single instance in which Baldoni referred to her wardrobe, which included black leather pants, as sexy, a term which, as noted, was widely used on set, including by Lively herself. A one-off remark may be unwelcome, but it is not so severe or pervasive as to give rise to a claim. It is undisputed that Baldoni acknowledged Slate's concerns, redacted. Lively also claims Baldoni yelled at female producer Alex Sachs. Yelling without more is not evidence of gender bias. Even Sachs resists such an interpretation, noting that Baldoni treated men similarly. They quote Sachs saying, defendants have a way of making women and some men feel like SHI to the T. Lively's references to verbal abuse supposedly experienced by another director on another set of a different film have nothing to do with the work environment at issue in this case. In any event, Claire Ayub, the alleged verbal abuse is only vaguely described with no suggestion it was either sexual or gender-based. Likewise, the claim that author Colleen Hoover was not involved in the script and did not receive dailies has no evident connection to Hoover's gender or to the on-set environment. Finally, Lively criticizes Baldoni, redacted. There is no evidence it was gender-based. Because, as is now undisputed, all the issues Lively raised were resolved, she cannot show that the conditions of her employment changed. This is yet another reason to dismiss her claims. Lively argues that even though she voiced no objections during the second phase of filming or thereafter, defendants' huffy and defensive reactions to Lively's behavior were themselves harassment. But the two occasions in which Lively claims that occurred were both during the first phase of filming. Regardless, the law is clear that such minimally unfriendly conduct does not amount to the change in the terms and conditions of employment required to prove a hostile work environment. On the contrary, the Supreme Court has repeatedly stated that the standards for judging hostility are sufficiently demanding to ensure that Title VII does not become a general civility code. Lively cannot prove any actionable retaliation Oh, I'm very interested in this. Perhaps aware of the shortcomings of her argument, Lively insists very little evidence is required. What she has is not enough to save her retaliation or aiding and abetting claims. Lively's claim that she has made out a prima facie case fails on multiple grounds, and even if she has, defendants have presented a clear, non-pretextual justification for their publicity efforts, which were a reaction to a media firestorm and not to any complaint by Lively months before. Lively did not experience any adverse employment action. She argues that the smear campaign is the adverse employment action. But Alex Shapiro says, it is now beyond dispute that no material aspect of Lively's employment changed for the worse. Her compensation did not decrease. Her role was not diminished. That alone is enough to defeat her FEHA claims. Lively tries to evade the point by expanding her supposed employment to include post-filming activity, as well as her campaign to get a PGA mark. Pause. All major actors, leads in films, like the A-lister here in her own mind, the critically acclaimed Teen Choice Award winner, these types of leads, these types of actors, it's in their employment agreements that they have to do promo for the movie. It wasn't hers. So, while doing promo, she was still an employee. Even on the red carpet, the night of the premiere, she was still an employee. I know that's a bit of a controversial take for some people, but it shouldn't be. Alex Shapiro argues that she had any role in post-filming activity is proof that her responsibilities expanded, not contracted. In any event, it is undisputed that Lively did get the opportunities and references she sought, including defendants' endorsement of her PGA mark. She described her accomplishments, redacted, and not as any setback. Lively's complaints that she was made to feel guilty and was criticized to Hoover and others are minor or relatively trivial adverse actions that, from an objective perspective, are reasonably likely to do no more than anger or upset an employee and are not actionable. That makes sense. Any such conduct, bad-mouthing her, had no material effect. The record is replete with evidence that after the May 6, 2024 dinner about which Lively complains, the one between Baldoni and Colleen Hoover, the author of It Ends With Us, Hoover worked closely with Lively, redacted. In lieu of any material harm, Lively relies on the CRA to argue that mere changes in attitude or sarcasm could be enough. Yet precisely because there is no material harm, no damages can arise from any alleged contractual breach, even assuming the CRA was a binding agreement, which it was not. Defendants' publicity efforts were reasonable defensive measures that are not actionable as retaliation. Let's pay close attention here. Lively cannot meaningfully dispute that defendants' publicity efforts took place outside the workplace in the arena of public opinion. Undisputed facts show Lively chose that arena and exercised immense power within it. It was Lively who unfollowed Baldoni tantalizing social media sleuths. It was Lively who disparaged Baldoni to her famous friends. Documentary evidence shows Lively's husband redacted, while Lively redacted, causing a media furor. Just days after the premiere, redacted. Lively's opposition fails to identify a single factually false statement defendants shared or promoted in response to this onslaught. I addressed this in my infamous video about retaliation. I said Baldoni did not smear Lively. I said that. But I do think there was retaliation because of the tactics that Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan and even Jen Abel employed. Yeah, I stand by that. She claims multiple incidents placed Lively in a false light, but fails to say which ones or how. She complains defendants exposed her to criticism for past conduct, but does not dispute those criticisms were already in the public domain before any publicity by defendants. Fair. Lively faults defendants for supposedly contending she weaponized feminism and took the movie over, but it is undisputed that Lively claimed to have redacted. She also claimed that redacted, clearly invoking a feminist theme. Lively asserts she was unfairly criticized for shifting the film's marketing strategy away from DV. Yet, it is undisputed that the film was always intended to raise awareness about DV, and that Lively redacted. In claiming Heath admitted her marketing was redacted, Lively misrepresents. In the very document she cites, Heath expressed concern to Sony about how many people are pointing out that the DV is being glossed over and encouraged everyone to be more deliberate in embracing the DV aspect. Regardless, it is undisputed, that's the word of the day, that Lively was criticized not simply for de-emphasizing DV, but for simultaneously promoting her other projects and those of her husband as well. Betty Boos, Blake Brown Beauty. The record is clear. Such criticisms appeared in the press independent of any effort by defendants. Lively cannot prove causation. Lively engaged in no protected activities after her protection's demands. That makes sense. The only protected activity was complaining about SH. Lively tries to shrink the temporal gap by stretching out her claimed protected activities. That doesn't work because Lively has never before claimed any of the additional events she now relies upon, such as redacted, or refusing to promote the film with Baldoni as activity intended to oppose discrimination. And there is no evidence any defendant understood them as such. Lively lacks direct evidence of retaliatory animus. Lively next asserts the temporal gap between her objections and the publicity campaign doesn't matter because she can show a direct causal link. But conspicuously lacking from the record is a single piece of evidence in which defendants say they are initiating a publicity campaign to get back at her for raising objections on set. Instead, she relies on messages in which defendants express concerns about her possible prospective activity and seek to prepare for the fallout. Those cannot prove a retaliatory motive, and it is undisputed that defendants' conduct consistently resulted in Lively's gaining more power over the production, not less. Undisputed evidence proves defendants' non-retaliatory motives. Lively argues no admissible evidence shows defendants had a legitimate, non-discriminatory motivation. She is wrong. Undisputed facts show that when defendants decided to engage a crisis PR team, they did so to protect their own reputations and that of the film against an anticipated onslaught of negative publicity, not to retaliate against her. Indeed, Lively admits defendants first met with TAG only on July 25th, after negative publicity had already begun. Lively lacks evidence to show, as she must, that her purportedly protected activity was the but-for cause of defendants' conduct. She cannot possibly meet that burden on this record, nor can Lively credibly argue that defendants welcomed the media fracas, I love that word, as a pretext to attack her for her objections. Rather, undisputed evidence, including materials Lively cites, shows that defendants were terrified and doing everything they could to avoid a confrontation. Post-litigation conduct cannot save Lively's claims. Lively leans heavily on actions defendants and their counsel supposedly took after she filed her CRD complaint. But if Lively did not suffer any actionable retaliation before commencing litigation, she should not be able to create a claim based on post-litigation conduct. Any such conduct by defendants would be a response to the litigation she commenced, not a response to any workplace complaint about harassment from many months before. Lively was an independent contractor, not an employee. All right, here's another hot take that a lot of the Baldoni head in the sand people are going to get mad about. I'm a professional actor, and I have been for 25 years? Did I join SAG? No, I joined SAG in 2001. I've been a professional actor, a member of the Actors Union, the Screen Actors Guild, for well over 20 years. Actors are employees. We might be independent contractors to get paid and protect your finances and the way that businesses and your finances are structured, but we actors know we're employees, okay? Unless you're also the director of the film, like Justin Baldoni was, or unless you're an actor and also one of the executive producers, which Lively was not when filming began. Lively cannot prove a failure to prevent, investigate claim. Lively knew how to raise concerns, and she did. Heath and Baldoni may have disputed her version of events, but they still acceded to her demands. And although Lively's brief asserts defendants failed to implement any corrective measures, her response admits It Ends With Us movie agreed to a set of requested protections through which a redacted set was achieved during all subsequent filming, including all intimate scenes featuring Lively herself. Lively also cannot dispute that through legal counsel, meaning she was safeguarded, she was protected by an attorney, she declined to pursue formal HR process. Lively tries to rewrite history, claiming an investigation didn't happen because Heath did not want redacted. That claim misleads the court by twisting Alex Sachs' deposition testimony and is not supported by complete evidence. Sachs actually testified that when she first suggested an investigation, redacted, Sachs further testified that she surmised Heath's desire not to have redacted based on her own interpretation, not on anything Heath ever said. Sachs's private speculation about Heath's motives is not admissible evidence. Also fatal to Lively's claim is the lack of evidence suggesting any failure to prevent or investigate harassment was a substantial factor in causing her purported harm. It is undisputed that Wayfarer had appropriate policies, and Baldoni and Heath participated in workplace harassment training because any allegedly harassing conduct ceased once Lively voiced concerns. Any subsequent failure to investigate cannot have contributed to any harm either. Contrary to Lively's argument, there is no causal relationship between the adequacy of defendants' on-set policies or their decision not to conduct a formal investigation. Lively's contract claims fail. Lively has abandoned her breach claims against Wayfarer, they argue. I'm going to skim through this part because it's not as sexy. The actor loan-out agreement is not binding or enforceable against the entity defendants. Lively falsely claims defendants confirmed in writing that Wayfarer was waiving execution. That did not happen. The cited evidence shows Heath told Lively's reps, "We have withdrawn our request for your client to sign her agreement in order to extend the time with the edit," i.e., Heath gave Lively more time to edit the film without making signing the draft ALA a condition of the concession. Lively's contract claim fails even if her non-signed document is enforceable, because Lively did not provide requisite notice. Lively does not dispute that she did not satisfy the notice and cure provisions in the actor loan-out agreement before suing. The defamation and false light claims fail. Lively cannot salvage her defamation claim. Lively cannot establish falsity or malice. Contrary to Lively's assertions, defendants have made a strong showing that no actionable harassment or retaliation occurred, as discussed. Accordingly, statements denying Lively's claims are true, or at least substantially true, which is all that is required to defeat a defamation claim. I don't know if that by itself is enough to defeat a defamation claim, but that adds to it. Lively does not meaningfully dispute that what constitutes retaliation, harassment, or a smear campaign is imprecise and subjective, such that a denial of such conducts constitutes unactionable opinion. Okay, that is super solid, and I agree. Lively also fails to muster evidence sufficient to prove actual malice with convincing clarity, as she concedes is her burden. Lively's false light claim fails. I'm going to skip through this one as well, because we still have to get to the motion for judgment on the pleadings. Lively has no standing under California law. Lively's conspiracy claim fails. Defendant Sarowitz must be dismissed. Lively fails to oppose defendant's damages arguments. She has no standing to seek damages, which are in any case too speculative. For the foregoing reasons, and those stated in the prior briefing, the court should grant summary judgment in the Wayfarer party's favor on Lively's claims. Or at least some of them. Yes, the judge doesn't have to do all or nothing. The judge can say, all right, this one goes away, that one doesn't, it stays. That one goes away, this one remains. And that's probably pretty likely to happen. Some of the claims are maybe going to go to trial. The likelihood of Wayfarer taking a total win here, I think, is slim. And thankfully, the Wayfarer defendants' reply to the opposition to motion for judgment on the pleadings is also slim, much slimmer than what we just went through. This was authored by Ellen Garofalo. I'm just going to read the intro and then skip through and share only the relevant parts of the rest. Lively's opposition hinges largely on extrinsic evidence, including all arguments and evidence submitted in support of her opposition. I'm so glad. I just went with the other one first because I thought it'd be juicier, the motion for summary judgment. I'm so glad I read this after, not first. Lively's opposition hinges largely on extrinsic evidence, including, remember what I said at the beginning? The motion for judgment on the pleadings cannot consider any evidence. It is just on the claims, what is being argued, and the law, not taking any evidence into consideration. Ellen says Lively's opposition to the motion for judgment on the pleadings hinges largely on extrinsic evidence, including all arguments and evidence submitted in support of her opposition to defendant's summary judgment motion, an implicit admission that as pleaded, her claims are deficient. Lively, however, provides no authority that might permit the wholesale incorporation of facts and argument that purportedly would have supported her claims had they only been pleaded. Lively not only fails to show how or why the court should stray from the rule that in considering a motion for judgment on the pleadings, the court is confined to allegations on the face of the pleadings, documents integral to the complaint and matters judicially noticeable. She fails to show that the new evidence she proffers would provide material support for her claims and cure the deficiencies in her pleading. Specifically, and among other things, the new evidence Lively advances falls far short of establishing the nexus between California and defendants' allegedly wrongful conduct sufficient to overcome California's presumption against extraterritorial application of FEHA and Labor Code 1102.5. Plaintiff does not even try to substantively respond to her failure to plead an adverse employment action, a critical element of her retaliation claims, but merely refers the court to her summary judgment filings, which are similarly cited to support her defamation claims. Yeah, that's a big F up. You can't do that. Just what you initially pleaded. This is a pleading motion directed to deficiencies in the complaint. By relying on extrinsic evidence first submitted in connection with a summary judgment motion, Lively concedes that her complaint standing alone is insufficient to plead her claims. Succinctly put, deficiencies in a complaint cannot be retroactively cured by evidence submitted in a summary judgment opposition or merely proffered in opposition to a Rule 12c motion. Ellen continues, plaintiff's opposition relies on facts and evidence extrinsic to the complaint. No. That's a big no. Plaintiff concedes that the complaint fails to allege an adverse employment action under FEHA or Title VII. Wait, I got to read this because I don't think she conceded that. Plaintiff does not even bother to address her failure to plead an adverse employment action as required for retaliation under FEHA or Title VII. Plaintiff only glancingly refers to an adverse employment action in her introduction, stating in the most conclusory fashion that she more than adequately pled an adverse employment action and causal links. Failure to oppose an issue raised in a motion to dismiss effectively concedes the issue, according to case law. Plaintiff merely directs the court to the arguments and evidence submitted in her summary judgment opposition. As explained above, a party cannot effectively oppose a legal argument framed in defendant's motion to dismiss by simply incorporating by reference an argument asserted in her opposition to defendant's summary judgment motion, and doing so cannot retroactively cure a failure to state a claim in the first place. This is so good. This is so good. In fact, the only plausible explanation for this critical omission is that plaintiff seeks to evade the court's 25-page limit for her opposition. Plaintiff fails to overcome California's presumption against extraterritoriality. Lively fails to show that her defamation claims are adequately pleaded. Lively again relies primarily on extrinsic evidence presented in her summary judgment opposition to refute defendant's arguments on the deficiency of her defamation claims. Lively's joint employer argument is misplaced. And conclusion. For the foregoing reasons and those set forth in defendant's motion for judgment on the pleadings, defendants respectfully request that the court enter an order granting this motion and dismissing plaintiff's claims with prejudice. I want to add something. A VIP member of my fram, Christy Shelton, mentioned this earlier in one of my videos. She said about that agreement that Wayfair signed saying they would not retaliate. Christy Shelton pointed out, Wayfair signed that agreement under duress. Lively was holding the film hostage, which makes that contract not to retaliate null and void. Christy, you're a genius. Let me read that one more time. Wayfair signed that agreement not to retaliate under duress. Lively was holding the film hostage, which makes the contract not to retaliate null and void because they signed it under duress. Wayfair has not argued that. They should. Wow. I have the smartest supporters. My followers, the ones that stick around, you're A+. And you would be A++ if you get a cameo from me on sale for the next few days. Too cheap, actually. Very affordable. Get a personalized greeting from me for a loved one or yourself. Right now on the Cameo website, I have thousands of glowing reviews. Book me right now at cameo.com/myname. P to the E to the R to the E to the Z to the H to the I to the L to the T to the O to the N. That's it. That's all. That's what I'm pushing. Get a Cameo. And If you watched until the very end, this is the most meaningful thing you can do to support your favorite creators. You are a VIP, the 1%. Thank you. Hit that like button, share this video, and in the comments section one below, say, girl power. Because I'm so impressed with both Alex Shapiro and Ellen Garofalo. Both of these filings today were chef's kiss. Say girl power in the comments section, get a cameo from me, and thoughts on all that we have heard today. I know she's going to be livid. Let's discuss everything in the comments section. Girl power. See you there.